let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Dunn.
Here.
Vaughn.
Here.
Novel.
Here.
Robin. Here. Wait.
Here. If you would join me for pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, opportunity for the public to be heard. Do you have anything? Okay, and real quick before number 4, this is usually where we have some standout shout outs. And I just want to shout out to our beautiful superintendent for the lovely AASA National Superintendent.
thank you.
Certification.
Thank you. I finished. During COVID, let me just say, but it ended with the pseudo TED talk. And I don't want to talk about that, but I appreciate that.
Can you tell us a little bit about what this means?
Yeah, so AASA, Superintendent Certification is a national program. So there were a cohort of about 25 superintendents from across the nation. Just because it was called Midwest doesn't necessarily mean they're all from the Midwest. They're from a lot of places. And they take you through 4 sessions where you get a lot of professional development, a lot of time to collaborate with superintendents from all over the country, which is really cool. Mostly because you can understand what's going on, what issues they have in other places, which is nice. But it culminates into a project whereby you take something you're currently working on and that you formulate research behind it, and then end with a 5-minute TED Talk. They call it a TED Talk, it doesn't really go on as TED Talks, but that's what they wanted to simulate. So mine was about, when we started, we were pre-COVID, we weren't in COVID at the time. So my project revolved around our virtual academy and school choices within a district. And so I took that topic and it ended up working out really great because, I guess, COVID, because we really did convert to this idea of parental choice within our own district. So anyways, it was a lot of fun. They mentor you through. So Dr. Ballard was my direct mentor, but met some really amazing superintendents from across the country, honestly. And the staff from AASA, which is our National Association for School Superintendents, they're amazing. Pat Greco was one that I just fell in love with. She is a retired superintendent that's working for an agency that does a lot of professional development, but just the kind of mentorship they have is outstanding. So that was kind of it in a nutshell. It was a lot of work, I'll say that right up front, but worth it. I had a little bit of jitters from the whole, videotaping myself and having everybody see that in the group, but it was well worth the experience. So thank you for allowing me to take advantage of that time. Congratulations, thank you. Okay, number 4, review and acceptance of the 2019-2020 audit of Bledsoe Judith and Colson. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to our consultant, who has been serving in that capacity for a few years now. So take it away.
Well, my name is Jeff Hewitt, with Bledsoe Judith and Colson now, and I get a copy of our report, and I'll go over here briefly with you. If you have any questions, you can take that. I'll let you go ahead. We're on page 5, I think it is, the independent auditor's report. Basically, the opinion letter, one of the financial statements here, June 30th, 20. Paragraph on the management responsibility, and a couple paragraphs on the auditor's responsibility. And on the bottom of 5 and 6, we're going to have the 2 different opinions. There's the adverse opinion on the accept of the accounting principle, and what is adverse because the district prepares the financial statements on a regulatory basis as prescribed by the State Department of Education. Therefore, it's not in compliance with new accepted audit standards. But then on the second and third paragraph is basically for a qualified opinion on a regulatory basis. It is qualified because the general fixed asset account group, which is the column that shows the balance sheet, the value for your land, or building, depreciation, equipment, etc., is not shown on there. Therefore, the third paragraph, which is in our opinion, except for that qualification, the financial statement is referred to necessarily, in almost all respects, assets, liabilities, and fund balance on the regulatory basis transaction. Mouthful, that, your question?
Is there a reason why we don't put that on there, like you suggested?
Most of the time, it's because it's kind of a cost benefit. There's probably 98% of the districts, probably more than the state, do not have the fixed asset column on the balance sheet. It's kind of it's costly because you would have to put in some system, or things going to be, coded, and where it is, the tax, depreciation side to it, no matter of keeping up with it. There's one school I know of now, they can hire an independent firm that comes in and does that, but they only do it about every other year. And they check things, and they update it, but it's a cost, but.
But there's really not a benefit to it other than we just get an audit that says we have fulfilled that function.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like there's inventory records that are maintained, but, with equipment for like computers and things of that nature, but it's more than just that for this.
Okay.
Good question. All right, so now flip, figure 7 and 8, and 9 and 10. They're fairly similar reports, that the portion of internal control, with compliance, as well as regulation. Hasn't been anything that's really considered significant, particular material weakness that would have appeared on this report. And I didn't find anything that rose to that level. There's a couple items on the management letter. It should be probably the last couple pages of your report. And there are a couple items that, easy correctable items. One is with the 941 or the quarterly payments, making sure they're done timely. The third quarter of 19, we have a little bit of late payments, so there's a little bit of penalty.
What page are you looking at now, Jeff? I'm
It should be
sorry.
like for the last two
Like the
pages.
last two
Of
pages.
the report.
The whole report. Just the very back of that whole thing. And then cut it 2 pages in.
There you go.
And the other one is with the reserve encumbrances, and that's just making sure at the end of the year, go through the open encumbrances and get that down to where it's a number that's gonna be expended or reserved in the network to extend the next fiscal year. Because that really would have an effect, doesn't affect the fund balance if you refer to it. Any questions with those? Comments? They're usually correctable items, and I would think probably going from 941 is probably an oversight at that time.
It was a computer glitch with the IRS system that caused us to pay 3 weeks late 1 month. And I discussed it with your individual. He was shocked by it. We actually have put in a letter with the IRS. But when we put it in, right after we put it in, they went on COVID protocol and have told us that they will get back to us whenever they actually get their committee back together. And so, once the committee gets back together, most likely we'll get our money back every month. But I kind of wait till the committee actually starts meeting again, and anybody's guess when that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I've heard they're so far behind. I even had, I know checks over it, they weren't cashed for, 3 months for their taxes, they got a second notice. So they are behind, as far as they're concerned. Who knows?
Yeah.
We might hear from that. But. Any other questions for them?
And can I say one thing? Yes, sir. The reserves that they showed, the extra reserves, what happened was basically COVID. We had a ton of stuff out there that we had purchased that we were waiting to come in. One of them, give you a great example, is what they call the play system. It's all the weights. I'm still waiting for that delivery and still holding that money and have several $100,000 worth of weight equipment and everything sitting, waiting to come in, everything, and we're still holding it. And it's the only thing I've got left,
Right.
but I'm still waiting on it to come in. COVID has absolutely thrown all of us for a loop since.
Yeah, and these items, they are, seem like large numbers if compared to your fund balance, and it's not, gonna make a significant effect on it. It is a lot of money, and it would affect your fund balance, it does. But, it's not like making your, getting there close to the fund balance of being, really low. So it is something to watch it every year, make sure those are, cleaned up at the end of the year. All right, well, let's look real quick on page 13. Kind of start the financial section, page 13 is assets, liabilities, and fund balances. You can see the left is your general fund, cash investments, warrants, and your fund balance reserve. Special revenue column, I'll show you in a second, it is combined building, efficient, and co-op. And so I'll show you those are broken out. Your debt service is your sinking fund, capital projects are your bond funds, and there's also a schedule I can show you where they're all broken out. Proprietary is a little bit of workers' comp that's been paying out over the last several years. Then you have the present agency fund, the activity, and also the debt outstanding. So the next page, you take the income statement, on the same classification, same column heading. As you can see, your general fund had an excess of revenue over expenditures of $457,000. Your fund balance increased there to 6.3, to 6.8. That's a little less than, it's probably about 20% of your total revenue, which is a good situation to be in, good fund balance. The special revenue, we'll look into it in a second, with a separate challenge. And, debt service is one that you would have much control over based on what the need is, the levy is, and so there's not much control over that particular fund. And the capital projects, kind of similar, where you're going to get the revenue, bond sold. You look at those here. The next couple pages is budget actual for the general special revenue funds. And after that comes the notes. I'm not going to go through all those with you. It's pretty general information. Towards the back of the notes, it's 33, it's a little more description of the bonds that are outstanding. Let's flip over to page 40. 40 and 41 show these special revenue funds separately. 40 is the assets, liability, and fund balance. And 41 is the income statement for those. 41 is the building fund had excess of revenues over the expenditures, about $171,000. For 3.7 million, that's 3.9, so it's good. It's a good fund balance for the building fund. Co-op fund also had a little increase. Fishing fund had a little decrease. However, the fund balance is still good. The department doesn't want to carry more than about 33%, 3-month average of expenditures over. But that's pretty close to what that is, so you're good as well as there. Next, let's see, I'm going to go back to 43 and 44, sort of the bond funds separately. Into the map. And pages 46, 47, and 48. It shows the activity funds. So these activity fund subaccounts, listed the revenues and expenditures for the year. And the last page, page 49, is the schedule of expenditures of the federal awards. And this shows each federal program the district participated in, revenues and expenditures for each program for that year. Do you have any questions about anything? We'll try to answer. I wasn't fortunate enough to come up this year out here on Friday. I had 4 pass, and it's always been pleasant. Staff's always helpful. Whenever we have a question or need something, they're always very good for us, so it's good.
Any questions? Item number 26, the action items to discussion and proposed approval of contracts with synergistic.
We need to vote to accept the audit.
No, we need to vote on the acceptance of, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's good. I'll make a motion, we approve the audit by Gladstone, Stewart, and Coles, that we just went through.
Any discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second, the vote please.
Dunn,
Aye.
Mullins,
Aye.
Noble,
Aye.
Wyman, aye, Lakers.
Okay, now we're going to move up.
I could, yeah, if you don't mind to get dug out, if we could just move up to synergistic, conversation, that would be great. That's item, number 26. Item number 26, that's correct. So I'll let Mr. Morris really take the lead here. We sat down with a recommendation from Dr. Keith Ballard, who's the previous superintendent at Tulsa, with the company Synergistic, working through the possibility of us being able to save some dollars based on energy savings and consultation with the company. So, Mr. Morris, I don't know if you want to do some intro.
Well, just very quickly, we were approached by Dr. Ballard and Doug Blue, and about, as superintendent said, about the possible savings of on our cash flow from energy consumption. After discussing with Blue what they bring to the table, and we also had Mike Bynum in there and Sean Parker in the meeting as well to discuss what they could do and tell them what we've done in the past. They felt that they could provide some significant savings for the district. We decided to set this meeting up so that he could present to you and answer any questions you have about what they provide and how they provide their services. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Blue and let him take the floor.
Like Greg said, my name is Doug Dooley with Synergistic. I'm the regional vice president, and the good news is that we feel like after working with your team for several months, like I said, we feel like there's some cash that we can help free up using your utility budget, your current utility budget. Y'all have the packet, I believe, in front of you and had a chance to go through that, so in deference to your time, I don't want to go over that in super detail, except for to say maybe go to your solution at a glance page 5, where we can look at the bottom line of what we feel like we can help save you. Specifically, we feel like there's a net savings of around $605,000 over the next 5 years for the district, $94,250 of that in the first 12 months. Projected savings that are net to your district. No capital outlay, so there's no new capital for this program. We work directly through your utility budget. We're not an equipment vendor. We're an organized behavior-based company. The savings are guaranteed to exceed your costs, so we have to be able to save you enough to cover your costs of the program, or we write you a check for the difference. We've been in business for 35 years, coming 2021. 2021 is not done soon enough, but we've been in business that long and only had to write a check 8 times in company history. So based on our projections, when we took a look at the data that was provided by your team, and just on the overall utility spend and your square footage in your district, and we looked at what we're doing in some other districts in the area, Bartlesville, Pryor, Broken Arrow, Tulsa Tech in particular. When we look, you're sub $1 per square foot, and so again, it's a 30,000 foot view. But our clients, we're able to get our clients down somewhere in that mid 70 cents per square foot range. So that was our initial look at that as far as being able to provide some savings for you. And when we did our projections, we try to be as conservative as possible because our job is to under-promise and over-deliver, quite frankly. So again, we feel like we've got some cash flow that we can free up for your district and do it in a no-risk way for the district as well. We're doing some really good things for districts in the area, and we'd be honored to have that Sand Springs added to that client list.
One of the things I'd like to bring up to you guys is, if you'll remember, Lauren Stevenson worked for us for several years doing this kind of work, although it wasn't nearly as technical. And Mr. Mr. Stevenson no longer works for us, so we don't have capture of that, kind of muscle, I guess, behind making sure our energy costs are not fluctuating, or we're doing what we can to make sure we're turning down the aerobic spaces and turning off those kinds of things. One of the, in my opinion, the advantage is the software program that they offer with that program to help us calculate and keep track of. So you
Yeah,
might see
over the
a little
years,
bit.
we've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of times that energy specialists get out in the buildings, and we still want our energy specialists to know the buildings, know their equipment, and those kind of things, but we've developed software over the last couple of years that's really helped us take this to another level where we can get alerts to our energy specialists. It's looking for anomalies in the energy use. And when it finds anomalies, it alerts that energy specialist to specifically what meter, what building that anomaly is happening. So they can go do that investigative work, look and see what's going on there, because we know exactly kind of where we need to be on that energy use. And then we can do some of that detective work and then go back and work with Mike's team to develop a plan for getting that where it needs to be. Another thing that we want to mention too is teacher and student comfort is number one with what we do. We need to make sure that during the occupied time, that the teachers and students are comfortable. That's non-negotiable with us because we gotta have their help. The majority of the savings that we do find is in that unoccupied time, that time going from the occupied and into that overnight hours. That's typically where we find a lot of the savings in that area. But now we're able to get so finite building by building, year by year. We know where that baseline needs to be with each building, and we know, and we're able to monitor it with the data and the software that we have to make sure it's getting to that area. And we're constantly pushing to get to that, to find that optimal rate that where you need to be on there. So ultimately, our job is to make sure that you're not using more money out of that utility budget, sending it off. We're able to keep some of that, recapture it, and again, redirect it back into your kids. That's the ultimate goal, is to support your kids here in the district.
So, excuse me, but the first year, we're gonna pay your company $55,400 for the first year. And you're gonna save us $94,000 for the first year.
We're gonna save, I believe, we're projecting to be able to save you $180,000 gross. After your fees are paid, that's a net of $94,000 back to the district.
And one thing to know, whenever they started calculating savings, I gave them access to ONG, PSO, and things so that they could go actually pull our bills. So they could see the actual bills for the last 2-3 years, I think what they did. So they could actually see what we were really paying. So there would be no misunderstanding, by just saying the CFO, well, you told us it was I let them go pull our bills from the vendors and everything. So they could actually see our usage at every building, every site, and how much we were paying. So to be able to calculate the numbers. One of the things I'm kind of excited about is getting another energy specialist running around the district who's probably half-time job will be just maintaining this stuff and taking care of us again, like Warren Stevens did, but using their tools to actually be able to hopefully do it in a more efficient manner. Not saying anything bad about Warren Stevens by any means, but, this person will have more tools to work with. And so that should hopefully make them more effective.
And not only that, we train that person, we work with the district to help identify that person, and then also come alongside them and train them and we have a team of people, we have a client manager that works with all of our client partner districts in this area. So they're constantly in here working with them and checking on the overall situation with the program and pushing for results. So that is definitely something, they're not under the rules, so to speak. They're not on their own, they are supported by synergistic professionals.
So it would be somebody from our team already.
That's not our plan though. Yes, it's from our team, but our goal is to hire someone to fit that role. So it'll be somebody different for sure. The capture is that person's time will be about part-time, about 20 hours a week.
About 20 hours a week.
And our goal is to have that person full-time to help us with security, fog, some of the other things that I know we're having our team to the nth degree to try to help with, so that we can maybe get more accomplished than we have been able to in the past.
So the plan would be that salary would come from this savings?
Partially, yes. Oh, yes, the total would come out of savings from what they would save us as a company. So, yes.
Who does the data input? Does our energy consultant do that, our person, or do you guys do that remotely?
They're able to do that manually when they need to, and we can do it automatic if we're getting the information from a digital form from your vendor. But what we typically do with our clients is if it's digitally available, we work out a new mode that we have access to get that, so that is automatically pulled in.
But we don't have smart buildings, so the real-time cost on a particular day is going to be hard to get to, the real-time energy usage on a particular day.
If, it depends on whether you have smart meters or you have the old analog meters, it depends on what it is for that particular building. If it's one of the old analog meters, then obviously you're dependent upon the bill that comes in 30 days later. But when you do have smart meters, we're able to pull that data in within 24 hours and do a quick analysis.
Do we have smart meters in our house? Can't imagine that you do. Not everywhere.
It might
We
be
have,
large.
that's typical, most, a lot of districts, it's rare that we find one that has 100% smart meters, usually it's larger than that.
I know the other firm that we had before, Lauren was there from inception, so he's actually training, working with the company to give them the data. So you might consider hiring someone sooner rather than later so they can work directly with this gentleman.
Right.
And get
Right.
get them trained too and know what information.
So our timeline would be approval, or we'd have to work approval in order to do that, and then we would try to, the plan would be to generate that posting the next month. So if we approve tonight, then post in January. And I don't know, Mr. Morris, if you're thinking, we talked about the possibility of tabling it, but I don't know, I'm kind of in the camp if the board so moves to go ahead and approve it tonight. What's your recommendation?
My recommendation, honestly, I have Gary Watts talking with their attorney to make sure that the contract meets our needs. So, my recommendation honestly would be to wait until January and vote to go on January, because while I trust people, I also trust my lawyer more, with Gary Watts. And, I want his legal mind to look at it and be able to have time to digest it a little further. That would be my recommendation. I don't think we have to be in a huge hurry, but that's just my thoughts. So.
I'm not comfortable voting on it tonight.
So. I thought it was important that Mr. Lou got in front of you though, to answer questions. And if you had any additional questions that you need answered, then he would have time to answer them as well.
I'd make a motion that we table this item.
Second.
The motion is second, any discussion? Okay. Vote please.
Dunn.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Wagner. Aye. Williams.
Aye.
My question to Councilor Watts will be, this is a multi-year contract, and I talked to Doug, is it, beforehand, and then he says the way the contract is written, we can get out of it in a year if we have to, so we're not committing future funds, because I don't think we can really do that legally, so we need to make a note of that. So
They written the contract in such a manner that it is, every year we'll have to come back and approve it.
Right.
It is a 5-year deal, but they've written it as such. But understand that there is a fee, they call it
It's a work fee.
termination of convenience, and that is in the contract. So if you do decide to opt out, they do have I call it a penalty, because you're gonna pay it, to help them cover their costs. If you decide that, after year one, I'm done. Now, it is a declining balance type situation, so it goes down each year, all the way down to the 5th year. So by the time you hit your 5th year, it's still a little bit of money, but it's nothing like it is the first year.
Enlighten me on your cost per year.
Well, and that's where we're not like a pay-as-you-go type vendor. So when we start up an energy management program, there's a lot of upfront costs because we bring a lot of operation people in to So that work fee is, again, it's for convenience. And a lot of, when that's ever happened, which is very rare, it's been a complete administration swap, and they just go through and completely get rid of any contracts that the previous superintendent has gone through. If we were to breach and didn't do what we said contractually we were gonna do, you don't owe us a thing.
So basically, you just have salaries is what you're paying.
Salaries and time and travel and work for our professional engineers and our technicians.
I will say that gives you time to think about it, honestly, and we're good with that for sure. Mr. Morris spent a little time on the phone today with Bartlesville, I believe, and prior today,
Yes,
talking through, so I don't know if you want to talk about the reference.
absolutely, I can real quick. I talked to David Boggs, the CFO at, Bartlesville, and Dr.
John Raleigh.
Riley?
Raleigh, yeah.
Okay, I talked to Dr. Raleigh prior, and both of them had glowing reports to say about, Mr. Blue and Senator. They both said that, they actually exceeded their expectations. And, which, really surprised me that it was such a glowing report to both of them. And David Boggs even, told me that whenever he was looking at it, he called Norman and Broken Arrow, which both have been in the program or are in the program. And he had received really glowing reports from them as well, of how much money that they had saved, and were surprised at how much money they were able to save. So, I want you to understand, I'm for this. I think it's probably a good program. I feel it's a good program. The only reason why I recommend tabling it is because I want Gary Watts to be able to have time to digest the contract and make sure that we stay focused on the legal portion on that. I just want you to understand that. But everything that I've heard, the people I checked with and the people they checked with have all given glowing reports on synergistic, honestly.
And I would like to add too, it's not always about the savings as well. Obviously, that's what we built our company depending on, but right now, out of the PERT. So that we're going to make a mathematical model of all of your buildings as well. We've also developed some software that's able to do some projections on if you have some water scenarios coming up on some any kind of HVAC switch out or LED switch out, whatever it is, that you're able to do some of those simulations. And so those are, I like to call that the perk of just being a partner with our program. We have several districts that have those, because every district has projects moving forward, and we can take a look at that what if scenario using our engineers and our technicians as well. And also in this day and age of COVID, as you bring kids back in, look for ways that we can help improve ventilation as well as filtration as well. That's been a big part of our engineering here so far as well. Looking at ways to make sure that we are following CDC and ASHRAE recommendations in this day and time, because again, building safety is number one. And you're not set up in a school district like a hospital, obviously, so we want to be able to try to make the most out of what it is that you have here. So.
Any other questions? I would just say, when we have him here, now would be the time to ask questions if you have others.
And if you have questions also, if you think of them later, you can always email me and I can forward them on to Mr. Blue and get an answer.
And I'll actually be here next meeting if you have some of that time.
I'd be curious, and it's not a question for him really, and you don't have to answer it now either, you can let me know later. I'm just curious, what did the LED switch out? What has that done for us?
Yeah, I mean, I just think was.
I'll have to look. I know
Be curious.
it's definitely decreased our electricity cost. I don't have the numbers anymore.
I'd just be curious, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd like to know that.
We could do a quick analysis of the electric and everything. I'll get that to you tomorrow and if they have to.
Whatever, not over.
Okay. I do know it saves us money. The LEDs actually did save us money on electric costs for sure. I think we really came out pretty well ahead on that one.
We checked that, we followed that the first year. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if we-
remember some early
Yeah,
on, but I'm just
yeah.
curious what we.
It's been a while. I don't remember the numbers now.
And remember, this is where we focus on conservation. So equipment will save money, but conservation is what we focus on. So we're not equipment, any kind of new equipment, things that you would do in the future, can be subtracted out using the verification process. So we want to keep track of what we're doing through the conservation center.
It's operational, it's teaching us how to be better conservative users of energy.
It's a lot of money, definitely, not a lot.
It sure is.
No problem.
It's a whole lot of money. Turn on, tell somebody to turn the light off, turn down the heat, unplug your refrigerator, whatever it is, that's a lot of money.
If I could say something, you've done this once before, and it saved you a lot of money, and that's when Lauren came in as your in-house person to be trained by another competitive company. And it did work. I mean, they found plumbing leaks, they found all kinds of things and trained staff to turn off the lights. And we put in automatic thermostats everywhere. Everything we did that they suggested saved us money. And it's time to continue doing it and to retrain our staff again.
Well,
I think you'll save money again.
Dr. Raleigh and Mr. Bosco said the same thing, it's a culture shift. It's getting people to understand, switching things off or turning them down when you're not using them saves money, and just getting them aware of it. And, they said that they had things like competitions.
I mean, we're talking about adults and teachers, we're not talking about kids.
Yeah, I know.
We're talking about, we have building supervisors called principals.
Yeah.
They should be teaching, I mean, if nothing else, can they not manage their own buildings?
They do a good job managing their buildings.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah, I get you. I
I'm just
remember.
saying, this is a whole lot of
I
money
understand.
we're gonna be laying out just to tell somebody to turn off the
I
light. To
understand.
retrain what we've already done.
I understand. I also remember going through that period of time with Mr. Stevens and getting a little notes on my computer. Hey, you forgot to turn off your machine. So a building principal in terms of making people conscientious is a little bit tricky. I'm just saying it's a very time consuming thing. Again, it's an option that we could choose to do or not to do.
So at the end of 5 years, when we've gone through this contract, we either re-up with them or we have our teachers go back and do what they want to do.
Well, I think it's a constant reminder.
Any more discussion? Okay. We're going to discuss and review student empowerment and staff empowerment.
Absolutely. AASA, thank you for that. Congratulations. I've already talked to that. We are publishing CMX successes again, and so I hope you enjoyed the November edition. Keep in mind that lots of good things are going on in the COVID era for sure. And so, just a chance to tell our folks what's going on in the district. And then the last part of number 5, which I'm really proud of, Mr. Trout took inventory, I guess, is the best way to put that, of the attendance coming back from distance learning. And truly in this era, this time, it's really been interesting, some of the perceptions, some of the data that we've gotten back, but I was pretty pleased with the attendance rate of those kids coming back from distance learning, which is similar to what we have when it's not COVID. So I thought that was just a little tidbit of good news from Charles Page High School as they were out for 9 days from distance learning. Any questions?
Research and innovation.
Yeah. Again, Vernon Florence continues to be a resource to help us muddle through revenue perspectives as we get into our mid-year adjustment. No doubt, Mr. Morris and I are concerned with the mid-year adjustment. We've definitely made adjustments to our spending over time. We're still financially solid, as was described in our audit. But we're still going to continue to recommend stipends for our staff in the fall or next month, knowing full well that it's going to be a different fund balance. We're willing to, I think, do that, especially with morale in the COVID era. It's been tough, to say the least, this year with our staff, for sure. You're going to see an agenda item later on in the agenda where we're going to ask you to do that with some parameters. So basically, we're offering 3% to most of our employees, those that are returning from us, and the new employees at 1% stipend with the lowest it could be is 300. So pretty excited about the ability to do that. As far as mid-year adjustment, we're looking to $80 to $84 per weighted ADM for January. It interprets for us into about $675,000, give or take. So again, not a need to worry about our stability, but something we need to make sure the folks that, sit in the office in Oklahoma City are very keenly aware of this spring. Depending on the course of state budget and revenue, we're hearing predictions that fiscal year 22 will be even worse. And so I think we'll see the economy kind of catching up with a lot of the depressed revenue sources in the state. And of course, my last comment is time will tell. I prepare for surprises, and then we deal with those as they come, as we've planned in advance. So, any questions about finance?
Empower families and communities.
We have scheduled dialogue for next week. You guys, I think we're going to go ahead and do a dialogue for tomorrow night. As you, I think, know, we have, and this will come out in the health and safety portion, we revised our quarantine guidelines to match the new CDC recommendations. So CDC is now recommending, instead of a 14-day quarantine, a 10-day quarantine, or return from quarantine after 7 days with a negative test. And so those were written into our guidance. We think that will help us in regard to keeping kids focused and in school. And then, and we're going to be talking about that tomorrow night, we're also discussing masks for our pre-K through grade 3. I believe Beth put a sheet in your board folder tonight of positive cases we're seeing in the pre-K through grade 3 students. And we are seeing a little bit of an uptick. I know I sent you a graphic that I believe the Oklahoma State Department of Health put together in regard to Oklahoma cases at ages 5 to 17. So we've been talking through that with some of our teaching staff, and of course had that discussion at SSEA. And it seems that the consensus is, with some parameters, the possibility of doing that. So we're going to be meeting with the nurses again tomorrow. By the way, the nursing staff has been incredible. Lindsay Sinkville and Janelle Wright need more than just a point of excellence. They need, I don't even know what they need, but they've been brilliant in helping us and guide us through all of those decisions for sure. So you'll see that. The second part of that, our 21st century after school program, Full Steam Ahead, is going great. Continues to bring a very great outreach to parents and families. The latest piece that we're putting in place, thank you to a partnership with Church That Matters, encouraging families to shop for Christmas for the families. So I just want to say thank you to Rusty Gunn and Church That Matters for making that available to our families in the 21st century program. So very proud of that. Any questions?
I'll just add to that, just, one of the reasons we're engaged in that is at our church specifically. Jim Conrad has done a fantastic job connecting with the partners. And that was really one of the things in the beginning of the program that was kind of put out there, that this is what this is and should be. And, time and circumstances and all that kind of diminished that, but she has really re-engaged the community partners.
Yeah, she's amazing. I'm so proud of her. I will tell you this, we had an email from the State Department of Ed. Sonia Johnson, who is the executive director, has been for several years of that program, sent an email specifically to me commenting about Jamie. She has been amazing, and it's just about having excitement and breathing new life into a program we've had. This is now, interestingly, the 16th year. We had a gap year where we did not get granted. And because of COVID and excessive carryover for most of the 21st century grant districts, we were able to carry that through for an additional year. So this is really year 6, which is kind of strange, of our 5-year grant. So I would agree with you wholeheartedly. She's amazing.
What we get to do is we were able to purchase loads of returns from Costco and Amazon. And so it's about 80 to 90% of those loads are like brand new stuff people brought back because it was the wrong color. And so, those kind of things. And so we're getting to set up a shop for these families just to be able to be blessed, and they'll all have stuff Correct.
The shop is in the
We will, yeah.
cool.
So by appointment, the families will be able to set up an appointment and go, quote unquote, shop for, it's just amazing.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, very cool. So thank you. Any questions about that? Okay. Health and safety, it seems like it's such a topic every single month, but so there's a lot of attachments. I have to tell you, in an email that I sent last week, I was a little tad bit frustrated with, just information pipeline, honestly. It's been that way since March in terms of the things that you receive. There's a map for everything. I learned very quickly from, I think all of us as a superintendent group across the state, learned that it was pretty tough to depend on a map with colors to determine school closure. We here in our district decided that we were going to look at our own district data and the ability of staff as a component for whether we would shift or not. And so last week, you'll see an email that was from Larry Fry, which is the Oklahoma State Department of Health, and Joy Hoffmeister, basically saying you will follow quarantine. It wasn't too much longer after that the news article came out that schools could do in-house quarantine, which we have chosen. I don't know if that's even doable, mostly because of the number that we have and the regulations behind it. Like, you have to provide a place, you have to make sure people are 6 feet apart, and honestly, finding a space in most of our sites is impossible. And then staff it with someone willing to come and spend, the days in a space with students who've been exposed to another person. So anyway, I say all that to say just the management of information that you receive in regard to the attempt to be helpful in making decisions has been a little bit of a roller coaster this year. And those on our team that have lived through that have experienced that with me as we meet. It seems like it is every day, but sometimes twice a day, and definitely with our nursing staff. So it's been a real challenge for sure. But I wanted to see all of those things that were just kind of fed into the districts within the last week. So I did want to make sure that you understood the new quarantine rules. Again, we're talking about CDC recommending going from a 14-day quarantine, reducing it to 10 days, and then to 7 days with a negative test. So that was something we wrote into the guidance last week. So hopefully that helps minimize the number of quarantines we have. Dialogue tomorrow night at 7. I'm going to encourage you to watch. And then I guess, my last note is about the in-house with certain restrictions that we have chosen not to do. So any questions about health and safety, anything COVID related, clarification?
I participated in a webinar last week that OSSB put on, basically from large schools. Superintendent Durkee joined me in the presentation, and there were just a lot of different school districts are doing things differently. So I appreciate what Superintendent Durkee just now said, that instead of looking at what information we're getting from all over the state, we're looking at what it is in our particular district and making our decision on if we're in school or not, based on what it is in Sand Springs. So that works very well for us.
It's been going well, not without some anxiety, I can promise you. We reset for Thanksgiving. You guys saw that. What we saw was a decrease in quarantines and cases, by the way. The reasoning behind the but the shift for our elementaries. We were out on a Thursday, which left 10 days for those that were testing positive to isolate and be able to come back healthy. At that point, we were running into staffing issues with our school sites, and a lot of anxiety with folks that are coming to school. We've struggled a little bit with keeping bus drivers healthy. We've struggled a little bit with keeping our child nutrition staff healthy. We think sometimes that our teaching staff is really the only thing that we need in order to provide service delivery for students, and then we all get it shook up pretty quickly when the entire child nutrition department at Clyde Boyd Middle School is in quarantine, and we're having to improvise by bringing substitutes in or sharing staff between school sites. So it has been tricky. So it's not only just teachers that could result in not enough staff to follow through the services, but it could be, some of our important pieces as well, like getting children to school or feeding them meals. I will say this, I received an email from one of our teachers, very respected teacher, and she was telling me, thank you for working really diligently to try to keep school open. And it had to do with the same reason we had called snow days. Kids need to be taught, kids need to be warm, kids need to be fed. And she was making mention of a delivery she made to a family in need, and witnessing some children that were not in school, that were in the cold rain without coats and very little supervision. So those are hard, tough decisions to make, and it doesn't go without a lot of collaboration with our leadership team and a lot of digesting of information and a little bit of lost sleep and a lot of anxiety. So we're working extremely hard to make sure that what we're doing is right for kids. So Mr. Mullins, I appreciate the acknowledgement of that work.
And you also, Superintendent Durkee, we're doing a pretty good job with the kids in class.
Correct.
But we have extracurricular activities that are kind of related to the school. Can you re-emphasize what we're doing there to make sure that we're not gonna have
Right.
what we saw yesterday,
Well,
Saturday?
I hesitate to criticize.
I'll be glad to see what they saw Saturday.
Well,
Let's win a championship, let's do that, I'll do that all day.
Just hard for the kids, I think it's maybe gonna celebrate.
I will say this, I'm careful about criticism for neighboring districts because those are hard. I will say, I think our protocols have kept us in school. We're trying really hard to keep our protocols in place with the extracurricular. So we have some indoor stuff coming up, we have wrestling and we have basketball. And I will say, our first home game was Thursday night. I had pictures sent to me of the stands. I think our folks did a really good job keeping their masks on and trying to stay away from each other. I know Mr. Sitton has limited the number of fans. Our wrestling tournament at Perry was canceled, I believe, for next weekend. They're hosting an elementary tournament, not in one of our school sites, but somewhere else. They're gonna allow fans, they're gonna allow people to come in, which doesn't really mesh with our protocols. And so I think the trick is making sure we do everything in our power to keep things safe, while at the same time giving kids the opportunity to do what they do. I had the question, I get a lot of emails from a lot of people, and it's fine. I answer every single one of them. But the question was, if we're pivoting to distance learning, why are we doing extracurriculars? And my answer, and it stands, is that we have tried so hard all year long to minimize what we're closing, what we're shifting. And in the best interest of our students, to make sure they're getting everything that we have the power to let them do to make it as normal as possible in this crazy, non-normal world that we're living in right now. I can't overlook the mental health of children. And that's a real thing, and it breaks my heart. And, maybe call that my previous, hat with a school psychologist, but it's a real thing. And we have a neighboring district dealing with student suicides right now based on anxiety from the world around us. And I'm pretty headstrong. I had a conversation with our staff today, our SSCA, and they're amazing teachers, amazing people, and they're stressed to their limits, I can promise you. But at the same time, if we don't hyper-focus on our kids, for me, everything we do, even cost savings to funnel more money in the classroom, where yes, maybe we should be more cognitive of teachers turn off lights, I get all that, but if our team does a really good job of hyper-focusing on kids and the whole kid, not just, I mean, we're about academics, man, don't get me wrong. I want that to be the first and foremost on our plate, to do the best we can. But at the same time, we can't negate all the other factors that go into it. I get super passionate, and you know me, I get on my soapbox, I get off of it. But in an attempt to give kids what they need, we're gonna work really hard to keep stuff open to the best of our ability, and we're gonna make sure we have perimeters in place so our people feel safe. And regardless of, you know, your feeling about your own personal health or your own safety, I will say this, coming in from, and I sent an all-staff email announcing my plight in the last 3 weeks. We've had some issues with COVID, and I will tell you this, it is contagious. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I think the psychology behind that, and again, I promise I'll be off my soapbox in a second, but I feel like I need to say this. The psychology behind not knowing how your body will react to it is a real thing. And so I, from a personal, and I'm just gonna, unfold and share my personal experience, but hoping for a negative test makes you a little jittery. And then you get the positive, and the first thing that runs through your mind is, what's the next 3 or 4 days gonna be like for me? And so it's a real concern for people. And so I say all that to say, there are so many little nuances that go into how we decide what we're doing for the district, but more importantly, what we're doing for kids and for our families and for our staff. So, oh my goodness, I'll stop talking now because I have a tendency to go on and on and on about things that I'm super passionate about. And any questions? That's like the most transparent I want to be is with this particular piece, because we've been living it for a long time.
I appreciate the city saying bring different new ones as well.
Agreed.
Okay, consent agenda.
Consent agenda, so for just for Ms. Moses, I'm gonna talk into the microphone right now.
I do, thanks, boss.
Okay, consent agenda. There are a few things that I want to bring to your attention. Most of it you've seen before, but item number 20. This is a royalty agreement we have branded. Our Sandite, our seal, all those things. Like anytime somebody uses our brand, then they pay a little bit of a commission, and we have an agreement with that. So that one's what that's about. 21 is the review and approval of our contract with Jeannie Kavach, our bond project. She is going to last at least one more bond cycle, she has promised. And so we're kind of in the middle of that. She's looking at me that glare like, maybe. So we're talking through that. This would be the contract renewal for fiscal year 21. I do want to remind the board, Jeannie, and you can help me out, but we pay her, she reminded me in the arrears, meaning that when we paid her in 2020 in May, that was for her work prior to, for the fiscal year 2019 and 20. So just a little clarification in regard to that contract. 22 is the approval of the One Voice legislative agenda for fiscal year 21. So we're getting ready to go to that legislative fund. And as you know, the One Voice agenda is the process the Tulsa Chamber takes us through to develop a common agenda, in this case, obviously for education. So that would be something that we ask the board to put their stamp of approval on every year as we unify to go and advocate. And then item number 23 is an application that was filed by, I believe, Miss Andrea Bryce regarding some training for teen pregnancy, and I know Mr. Beard has some additional information.
So, as part of the Family and Consumer Science curriculum for Career Tech, FACS teachers or Family Consumer Science teachers are required to cover a unit on teen pregnancy. And in the past, she had relied on the Tulsa Health Department to present curriculum to 9th grade history classes, but they no longer do that. They aren't doing that anymore. And so, based off of a recommendation from the Career Tech Family and Consumer Science representative at the state level, Ms. Bryce received information about the Better Futures Project. And what it is it's a teen pregnancy project that allows her to receive training and the curriculum that she needs to present, what she's required to present as part of her consumer science class. And during that process, she teaches it once per year. She has semester-based classes, so she'll be teaching it actually twice in the year. And it's only for her family and consumer science classes, but as part of that requirement, comparing this curriculum to the Tulsa Health Department curriculum, one of the things that they do though is they discuss abstinence first, 100%, and then they cover safe practices and link substance abuse statistics to teen pregnancy and pregnancy risks. So the students understand some of the negative consequences that can come from risky behavior in teen pregnancy. So she's presented this. One thing that you're going to notice in the document that's attached to the agenda is that they do, as part of what they're doing with the curriculum and offering it for free, they're gathering data because Oklahoma is a large, it has a high number of teen pregnancies as compared to other states. And so what they're doing is they're gathering data from surveys, but the survey that's given at the beginning of the curriculum and at the end of the curriculum is voluntary. It doesn't take down any personal information, so students' names are never known based off of the information that they give. The teacher never knows which students have completed which information. So everything's basically confidential, and the teachers can train in confidentiality. And so the exchange is that the state gets, or this organization gets to use that information to report back statistics on teen pregnancy for the state of Oklahoma. So if students, it's voluntarily, the survey is voluntary, so if students choose not to answer any or all of it, there's no problem with that on the end of the organization. So, but it still helps her satisfy her requirements for career tech and satisfying that requirement on those standards.
What she was doing is no longer there.
What she was doing is no longer available, and she feels like this is actually a better approach to satisfying that standard than what was being offered before.
Any other questions about items on the consent agenda?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Vote in a second, vote please.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Oh, Jackie.
Okay, I didn't hear, I'm sorry. Dunn?
Aye.
Mullin?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Wagon? Aye. Williams?
Aye. Okay. Action items, number 24, proposed executive session to discuss employment. No? Okay. 25, proposed employment.
I'll make the motion that for the proposed employment of the individual positions that are listed. Item number 24 and 25.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, vote please.
Dunn?
Aye.
Mullin?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Wagon? Aye. Williams?
Aye. Okay, number 26, number 27.
Number 27 is the proposal of the one-time non-recurring stipend for 2021 school year to all eligible personnel with the following criteria, A through E, which I described earlier. Are there any questions about that?
Out of SGA, just respond to the retention piece that could be taken from their pay if they end up not fulfilling the.
Right, we discussed that today. The truth is, as it's written, it gives us the ability, the bottom line is, and I described it, I think they thought it's confusing, but all we want to know is whether they're leaving or not by April 30th. So they're free to leave. It just helps us regarding being able to onboard someone a little bit earlier. So they were fine with it. I think everybody was pretty excited.
They're free to leave, but we can take their money back.
Well,
No, only if they don't let us know they're gonna leave.
right.
Yeah, they have all the way to April 30th
Yeah,
to notify us.
right.
So although they're gonna be given a piece of paper with their check that they sign saying they're coming back or not coming back.
Right.
Then they can reverse that all the way to April 30th before we would even have the option to say.
If they say they're not coming back and choosing to stay, there's a nuance that says without express permission. So obviously, if we have a person that has said they're going, but then changes their mind and stays, we're likely gonna want them to stay, so there would be no taking that stipend back. It'd be very unlikely, Mr. Gunn, to take a stipend back. Of course, this is language that was written by Gary for the purpose of, we were trying to put a condition in place that would meet the letter of the law, but not require them to spend a couple hours in professional development in addition to work they're already doing in December. This is something that we've done before. This is something we wrote into the stipends, I believe it was in 2018.
But if someone gets a stipend now and say they're going to stay another year and it comes April, they say, no, I changed my mind.
Right.
All that.
Right, so if you say you're gonna stay by April 30th, if on April 30th, you turn in your letter and you say, I'm gonna stay, and then you decide in June to leave, then we could hold the stipend from their check. That's correct.
Everybody's coming back, how much does this cost us?
Greg, close to $800,000. Total cost of the stipend was right at
It's gonna
$800,000.
be about 800,000, yes.
A little bit less.
Approximately.
Any more discussion?
Make a motion for the approval of the one-time non-recurring stipend payment for 2021 school year. As described in the line items.
I'll second. Vote, please.
Dunn.
Aye.
Muller.
Aye.
Marvel.
Aye.
Blackman.
Aye.
Wilchin.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay. Review business, any matter not known about, which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to posting of this meeting.
I have none.
Announcement. No announcements.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Vote, please.
Dunn.
Aye.
Muller.
Aye.
Marvel.
Aye.
Aye.
Wilchin.
Aye.
Aye.